Welcome to Messy Liberation, the podcast that dives deep into feminism, business, and personal growth. I'm Becky Mollenkamp.
And I'm Tiana Brown. Get ready for another messy conversation through the eyes of two intersectional feminist coaches.
Let's get messy. Hi, everyone.
We have live from New York.
Right? Well, or live from wherever we all are.
Wherever you are, yeah.
Before we kick off, I actually, last night, as I was laying in bed thinking, we're recording, I should do something we never do, which is whether you're listening or watching, would you take a moment and make sure you are subscribed or following if you aren't already?
And we never say that.
We never do, ever. And I never think about it. So I was like, I'm going to try really hard to remember to do that today. If you are already subscribed and following and are enjoying things, could you take a moment to rate and or review, depending on what platform you're on, or leave a comment, or whatever way that the platform you're listening on allows you to give a little love, because those things really matter, especially for independent podcasts. I know people talk about it all the time, and then I hear it and I'm like, yeah, and I never get around to it. But truly, that's what helps people find us. Those little things make a big difference. So if you do that, that'd be swell. And now we'll get into things, because we have a guest with us today, and it will not be confusing at all, because our guest's name is Tiana, Tiana. And you obviously know we also have Taina, Taina. But we're going to figure it all out. And it'll be no problem. There's no way we'll say the names wrong and it's all going to be great. So, Tiana, can you kick us off by telling us a little bit about you?
Oh my goodness. Hi. So I'm Tiana Dodson. I'm a body liberation facilitator. And what I do kind of in a nutshell is I help people reconnect with their bodies, destigmatize fatness, and better understand how the systems of oppression are really between us and being at home in our bodies and with ourselves. So yeah, that's it.
I love it. And where in the world are you, if you don't mind sharing?
I am located just south of Munich, Germany.
Yeah, so we're
my gosh
today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting? Yeah.
A little cross-continental.
So we can do a little talk about life in Europe and some of those things if we want, but I want to start off with what's going to be probably a really basic question, but one that I think a lot of people may have when you hear the term body liberation, which I hear more and more. How is that different and or the same as what I think many people have probably heard more often, which is like body positivity or body love, or, some of the other kinds of terms that are out there?
Okay, that's a juicy question. And I really love starting there, because since I'm talking about it all the time, I know what I'm talking about, and I forget that other people might not be in my head. Yeah, so you've probably heard body love, you've probably heard body positivity, because they're really big on social media. Dove has a campaign, and they have different shaped bottles for your body or whatever, which is yay, thanks. But that's not doing so very much. So anyway, body positivity is the mainstream version of body liberation. And body positivity is really about celebrating the body that you have and loving the skin that you're in. That's somebody's tagline somewhere. But they really are lacking in a lot of ways. I think it's a beautiful thing to start with. It's a beautiful place to start. Let's make more love to our bodies. Let's have more love for our bodies. Absolutely. Let's do that. But also there's more to it than just yay, I celebrate the skin that I'm in, because body positivity usually has a limitation for how large of a body we're okay with celebrating. And on top of it, it tends to be more about aesthetic things rather than the actual politics of what it means to have a body that falls outside of what is considered ideal. And so even when we're talking about body love is still a real aspirational kind of idea, because loving the body that you have is not accessible to every person, because some of us have body-based traumas. Some of us have things about our bodies that we will just, regardless of how much effort and energy we put into it, we will never be able to love it. And so I think that it leaves out so many people when we're just just love the body that you have. And that's how come what I practice is body liberation. That's my message. That's my movement. That's what I'm working toward moving forward into, bringing it into the world more and more, because bodies are political. Right? And I know there's a lot of people who are no. Politics, no. My body has nothing to do with politics. But it's absolutely it does. The gender that you are read as when people see you matters. The color of your skin, the size of your body, the ability or disability that you have. These things are in the way of you having access to getting your needs met. And that is political. Like, can I go and actually take care of the body that I have? Can I clothe it? Can I, like, if I want to go on a hike, can I find shoes that comfortably fit my feet? Can I find a jacket that comfortably fits my body? Like, if it's raining outside, which it rains in a lot of places in the world, can I find a jacket that covers me, you know? And these things are political because money is related to this, power is related to this. And like, it's not just about who do we see on the television when we turn on our show. That is part of it. But ultimately, like, it's about, can you get your needs met? Can you live a whole, complete life in the body that you have? Or are there artificial boundaries that are placed in the way of you being able to have your needs met? And that's what body liberation is about. It's about fighting against these artificial boundaries and creating more space and more possibility and more access for everyone, regardless of what kind of body you have, regardless of what your body can or cannot do.
Yeah. And these boundaries, some of them are artificial, some of them are real, man-made, made up, right? But still real barriers, right? So there's like a combination of those, which makes me think about when we talk about anything liberation and including around the body, there are like these two pieces of that story, which part of it is, and the reason I like liberation versus the other thing, which the other story is telling just the individual story. You should love your body more, right? It's just all me. It's my work I need to do. It's my problem. And I feel like anything we're talking about liberation is, and that body exists inside of systems that create barriers, that create access issues, create problems, all these, challenges. I only have control over one of those directly. One of them I have ways I can begin to assert some control, but I still have to live within the systems and they're not changing tonight. So like when you think about body liberation, you think about those two things. What are you doing with people to help them? Because like obviously you can work with people on the side of it of like the pieces you can control. Yet you still like, what is liberation if you still have to exist inside of those systems that continue day after day to make your body, feel like an enemy in a way?
Right, absolutely. So like, it's hard. Just starting there. Like, none of this is easy because, again, like you just said, we're living in these systems and they won't change today just because I learned something different. But that's really like where my work is. And it covers a lot of different places. Yeah, my work covers a lot of ground. So it's messy over here. Hello, I'm in the right place. Messy
Yep,
liberation. And
that's
honestly, that's how we
we
love
love the
it.
mess.
I mean, isn't liberation the messiest of everything? Like, none of us have fully known liberation. And like, I realize that on one hand, I can understand the clarion call of oppression and like fascism, because it's like, here are the rules, you obey the rules, you sit with us and you obey the rules, and that's it. Like, and it's wonderful in a way. I understand that, to know what's coming, to know what's good and what's not good, to know what's right and what's not right, to know what the plan is, what's the agenda. Like, I understand that for real. But like, liberation is this beautiful, messy place because we're creating, we're building, we're unpicking, we're restitching, like all these things. And I think that there's just so much possibility there. And I get it. It's scary because none of us understand what we're doing. Somehow we don't understand what we're doing, but at the same time, it's like, there's just so much space. And I know that there are people who aren't ready or interested or willing to be in that like spaciousness. However, my work, what am I doing? What am I helping people do? How am I helping people to achieve like body liberation or move forward toward it? And the simplest answer to that is I have a 4-step framework for body liberation. And so step 1 is education, because you cannot fight against a system you neither know nor understand. Step 2 is reframing. So basically, what we're doing is we're taking the stories that we've been told, the conditioning that we've been given, all the things we've been taught, and we're sorting through them and interrogating them to find out like what actually can we keep that's going to help us move forward, and then what needs to be either completely retooled so that it turns away from being something that harms us into something that helps us, or do we just toss it and throw it away and say thank you, but no thank you? Then there's step 3, which is self-care and resilience building. Because like you mentioned, Becky, like there's the internal part of body liberation and then there's the external part of body liberation. So internal part is like, I'm changing, I'm working on how I feel about myself, how I feel about the world around me, how I relate to both of these things. But then also you have to learn how to take your new ideology and your new ways of being out into this world full of oppression and ugliness, and like be able to be who you are in a world that doesn't want you to be that. So there's a lot of skill building there. And then step 4 is advocacy. This is where you both learn how to like use your voice and your actions to get your needs met in a world that doesn't want to meet them, and also start paving the way and create those ripples for the people who are around you and who will come behind you. So yeah, that's basically what we're doing, and there's a lot in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you have that framework because it helps people be able to like pinpoint where they're at in their process,
Absolutely.
which I'm assuming when you're working with people, it also helps to highlight what areas to focus on, right? And so some like one person may come to you and have like some semblance of an education in terms of what body liberation means and what it can look like, whatnot. And then someone may come in like completely brand new. I'm assuming you see that all the time.
For
How
sure.
did you come across this work? Like what's the backstory?
Ooh, the backstory. I am my own first yeah, my own first client. What is it? I'm not only the CEO, I'm also a client. Yeah, so I all right, here we go. Story time. My background is actually mechanical engineering. So I was working as a yeah, I know. I'm out of my own league in so many ways. But yeah, so I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and I was working as a mechanical engineer. I got this great opportunity to come to Europe, to come to Germany and do a job here. And while I was here, being boots on the ground, starting a collaboration between my organization and the organization I was working with, I met a guy. The guy was
Isn't that
not
how almost all stories?
right,
I met a guy or I met a girl.
I met somebody and I fell for them, and then the rest of my life changed. Yeah, that's my story. So I met this guy who, plot twist, isn't German, he's French. So, just keeping it complicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I met this French guy. We dated long distance a year and a half after my work was done. We made a very romantic spreadsheet of pros and cons about who moves where, because that's what you do when you're two engineers. And of course, Germany, like
That's
Europe
hold
wins.
on. What is spreadsheet?
The
Becky loves
spreadsheet.
her spreadsheets. So you're first of all, you're speaking her love language right now.
I'm not an engineer, but maybe I should have been because yes, there's nothing to make me happy with a spreadsheet.
Look.
What without getting into too much detail, obviously, because this is personal, but like overview, like how in depth was this? Like, were there multiple tabs? Like, I
Oh
just
my
have so
god.
many logistical questions.
I probably could pull it up for you and you could look at it. But because we keep our data here. Like it was really like, okay, so if I come to the, his version was, if I come to the United States, then like what are the needs like that I have to get there and live there legally? What are the benefits and the drawbacks of living in the United States? Financial stuff.
What year was this?
And 10,
Can
Okay.
you
2010,
tell it's not
2011.
anytime recently because there wouldn't be very many. It would. I don't
Yeah,
think you.
no, no. Right now it's like, United
It's all
States,
drawbacks.
no.
Aren't you glad you made the choice you did?
Boy, look, the timing somehow worked out for me for sure. But yeah, like that was the thing. And so like in the end, like we're looking at this pro con spreadsheet and it's like, oh yeah, Europe wins like hands down because socialized healthcare. The fact that this man has a job that, I mean, in order for him to lose his job, he would have to do some really ridiculous things.
Yeah, it's
I
really hard
mean,
to get fired in France.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, look, I'm working at a job, I wasn't working in New Jersey at the time, and it's like, okay, well, like it's an at-will state. Like I could get fired for any reason, anytime. I sneeze weird and they're like, hey, we've got one brown person too many who sneezes funny. That could have happened. And it was just easy. It was just easy because it was like, well, I mean, I'm just leaving my career and my family and my country behind, so whatever. Big deal.
But you were doing engineering work at that time.
I was. But the thing is, I mean, honestly, doing engineering work, I was not paid super, super well because I was working at a university, which is, these are not the highest paid jobs. And then also, like, we were a contractor for the Department of Energy. So, again, not completely ridiculous money because
And you wouldn't have a job now, so again, good choice.
we don't believe in science. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like even back then, we were already fighting for our like our budgets. So I'm sort of glad that I jumped ship when I did because
So I'm assuming when you moved, you weren't able to just jump to a job, because I know that can be very challenging when you're moving, to Europe from the US
right,
to work and find work and make that work
Yeah,
out.
get a work visa and all of
right.
Yeah,
that.
was that what led you sort of towards self-employment and then into what you're
Yeah,
doing?
exactly. Because basically, like, I could have come over and gotten a job, but it was just like, no, engineering wasn't my passion. It was never my passion. It was a thing that, like, I was good at. I love math. I enjoy science, but it was just like there wasn't enough people in for me. And I
Mhm.
really like to people. So I was like, I want something that's more creative, that's more people oriented. And I was kind of already looking for a way to find that for myself. And so this just happened. Like it just happened and it happened at the right time. So I moved over here to Europe and I was like, okay, I'm about to be Holly Homemaker because like he didn't have any debt, y'all.
I don't even know what that feels like.
I feel like we have to be careful here before you may start to lose your audience, where we're gonna turn on you. So be
No,
if you
right?
you start saying too much of this, but you got your health care, you've got a
Right.
family plan, like,
Yeah.
all
I
right, we get
know.
it.
I know.
Loading.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it was crazy. Like he didn't have debt and I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
I still struggle with
I
it.
feel like, but actually, I just want to, I feel like we need to point out that probably and this is my assumption, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that probably why he didn't have any debt is because of the social support systems in Europe, the socialized
Education.
healthcare, subsidized or free education, the like all of those things that those countries provide for. And obviously Europe is not the only place that provides things like that. There are other places in the world that provide, those kinds of support systems, but it makes it easier for people to live debt-free lives when they live in places where their government does a better job of providing for the people. So I just, this is the messy, the intersectional part of it that I just want to
Exactly.
make sure whoever's listening or watching understands that this is like a multi-pronged kind of effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I didn't marry a royal. I didn't marry somebody who's living in, a castle or something. Like I didn't marry that guy. Like his mom worked in a shop and his dad worked on the train. Like these are just regular people who own a
Yeah.
house in a small town, little town in middle of France. Like they don't have money. Like these are people who like they're counting their cash so that they make sure they have enough money to pay their bills at the end of the month, that they can go on vacation, but they don't have debt because their government works differently, and it's crazy. It's crazy how small of a change in some ways that is, but
Mm,
how very, very different it makes your living standard.
yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So you're a mechanical engineer by trade. What was your entry point into body liberation?
Boy. So okay, Holly Homemaker. I was like, I'm Holly Homemaker because we don't have any debt and he can afford to pay rent and everything without me having to have a job. So if I don't have to have a job, why have a job? Who
Yeah.
actually wants to labor? No one wants to labor. So I lasted 3 months. I couldn't deal. I couldn't deal. I had already DIY'd so many things. Like, I mean, geez, there's just only so much bread you can bake. And I was like, okay, I need something to do because I can't keep decorating. Like, there's too much. So I had been seeing a health coach because I am a fat person. I've been a fat person my entire life. And I thought that this was the way. Cause like that was what happened like in the mid 2000s. So like the noughties and like the tens, like around that time, the messaging had changed a little bit around like it wasn't about like get thin anymore. It was get healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
all of that with all the quotations around the word healthy, right? Because we meant thin, but we meant like don't starve yourself, eat kale instead. Starve yourself through kale. So I was seeing a health coach and I was like, this is the way I'm gonna like lose the weight finally. And ultimately what happened was I like fell in love with her job. She looked so happy all the time. She was like eating fun stuff and working from home and like talking to people and helping people. And I was like, look, I'm here for this. I want this job. So I went to health coaching school. And while I was in health coaching school, I realized that I was a fat person amongst a bunch of people and we were all having a conversation about how to make people less fat and avoid having fat people. And I was like, hold on. I'm a fat person, yet I'm healthy. My blood work looks good. I'm active. I have a partner who loves and cares about me. Like, I have a really great life. Nothing wrong with me except for the fact that my body is larger than it's supposed to be, quote unquote, supposed to be. So, what if it were possible to both be fat and healthy? Is that a thing? I asked the internet. I asked the internet because that's what you do. And the
That's where Google
internet,
knows everything.
heck yeah. So the internet actually brought me health at every size.
Mm.
So health at every size is a paradigm um, that has been like, floating around in fat liberation circles since, there have been fat liberation circles in the United States since like the 60s and 70s. 1960s and 1970s. Goodness gracious. I'm old. So,
My son calls it the 1900s.
well, I can't deal. I
I
can't
know.
deal. I can't
I
deal.
know. Nothing like a child to make you feel ancient.
Children. I have a 10-year-old, so I know. No, he's not 10 yet. Oh gosh. We're like 2 weeks away from him being 10. I can't deal. So, yeah, health at every size is essentially saying, you know what? It doesn't matter about the size of your body. That is not the thing that determines your health. What determines your health is really more to do with your habits and your like the luck of the draw genetically. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, I'm here for this. I'm here for this. Let me like so I just like started folding this in. So like as I'm like d- just digesting and just like devouring all the information that I can find about health at every size, I start folding this into my health coaching practice. And I start losing friends in the health coaching circles. I was accused of giving up.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not surprised by that at all. I mean, I think every person who lives in a larger body and has done all the things at some point, if you do, and in some ways it does feel like giving up in that it's like I'm giving up on all of the lies and the bullshit and everything that told me that if I did X, Y, and Z, I would suddenly look like Kate Moss or whatever the aspiration is, right? But yeah, I mean, I know I've experienced that, this feeling, and even explicitly of people saying like, well, you can't just give up. You have to keep trying,
Yeah.
like to aim for this thing. So I get that it
Yeah.
feels shocking, but I also feel like I totally relate to them.
I think
Oh
it's
yeah.
shocking because it's like, it's people that you knew, right? Like if it were strangers on the internet, that'd be one who were saying you had given
Sure.
up. That'd be one thing, but it's people you had relationships with. Like that's
Yeah.
always the shocking part. It's like
Heck
you
yeah.
know me,
They
yet
can be the worst,
you
especially
somehow
family.
yeah, yeah. It's like you
This.
know me, but yet somehow you are so off the mark. Did you ever really know me?
And the health
This.
And
space
so it
can be
just kind
really,
of
really
creates this
bad.
existential kind of crisis.
It was rough. It was rough. And because it's like, like going through health coaching school was actually really transformational in a lot of ways. It opened my mind to a lot of different possibilities, as we have seen by people who fell into the QAnon space. So anyway, but ultimately, like, yeah, it was like you're betraying us because you are a a larger bodied person who has decided to stay there. How dare you? you know. And I was like, okay, well, okay, you aren't my people anymore. Where are my people? There are wonderfully like active and compassionate groups on Facebook and other places on the internet of other larger bodied and fat people who are like happy to be fat and practicing like being okay with their bodies the way that they are. And I was like, I'm here for this. So that's how I ended up. That was the beginning. That was the beginning of my journey into body liberation.
Mhm.
But even that piece about their discovering that there were people who were happy, not even just tolerating their fat bodies, but learning to actually be happy inside of their fat body. Like, I know for many people, they hear that and they just can't believe it could be true,
Oh yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
Either because they are in a fat body and still very much wrestling with all the stuff, the self-hatred that we are given about body shaming and all of that, or because they're thin and they believe that there's no one who doesn't want that, right? That you just can't possibly not want to be healthier, skinnier. And again, right? We know those are not well, we know those are not synonyms. I don't think most people do. And that's why they can't believe it. And we still see the shaming and in the medical space. We still
God.
see the shaming in the health space. Like the health, fitness, wellness industry is horrible for that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So like I'm sure it was shocking for you to find spaces and find those people who weren't just like, I'm tolerating this or I'm learning to just be, because that's my journey was. I went from trying to figure out what body positivity could be and being like, that doesn't feel remotely possible. Moving into like this body neutrality, where could I
I know.
just be with my body and not judge it, right? And just not experience it. Like, could I remove like it was, and I'm still sort of in there of like, how can I find clothing? How can I just make everything about where I'm not constantly thinking about my body?
This.
Right. And I still struggle with, will I get to that place of like, no, I embrace and love this large body. And I don't know, like that's hard. So that had to be like a big deal,
Oh
I would
yeah.
think.
No, it's a huge deal to find these communities because like I felt I was all by myself. And like, that was what my experience was also playing out. Like everybody around me was like, you are nuts. And I was just like, no, I can't be crazy. Like I can't be crazy. And then I like start meeting these groups of people who are just like, no, hi, come on in. And that was really wonderful and also difficult to deal with sometimes because, again, like you were saying, it's wonderful and also jarring to see
Mhm.
fat people, like people who were like significantly larger than me. And we're just like, yay, I'm celebrating my jiggles and my wiggles. And I'm just like, oh dear, wow. And like, cause I wasn't there. I was definitely not there. And like, but to see that also is refreshing and it just like it opens up space and possibility. It's like I could maybe also have that. That's wonderful. So I'm so glad that that exists. But then I learned about trauma, and that was an interesting experience for me because of course, like when you get radicalized about like with a new idea, you become a zealot. Right? Your pendulum swings the complete opposite direction. So I was like, fat people, yeah, love it. Yeah, yeah. Like I was there and like I was not going to listen to anybody talking negatively about their large body or talking about anybody else's fat body. I was like, no. But then I learned about trauma. And I learned that just blanketing negativity with positivity and love doesn't erase negativity. It just makes a bunch of people miserable. And I was like, okay, because The thing that I was realizing was that in spite of how much cheerleading and excitement that I had for these areas of like fat embrace and acceptance and love, I still would have days where I was just like, oh God, I hate this. I hate this body. I wish that I was smaller. Why can't I just, and like, I was like, hold on. Why am I having this? I'm supposed to be free of this. But you can't just get free from hating your body when the world around you is first constructed and also completely reinforcing the fact that you don't fit. And so it's like, okay, well, what do you do in the face of that, right? Like, you will never confidence yourself into a larger, you will never confidence yourself into a store and like have them magically have your size. That'll never happen. And so, like, I was like, what do I do here? Well, with a beautiful friend that I have whose work was based on trauma and humanizing trauma, she helped me to realize that there is not possibility for all the people to get to a place of loving their bodies. Sometimes the best that we can do is just not hate our bodies. And that's like one place. And then that made me realize that, like, okay, loving your body, regardless of its size, regardless of what's going on with it, is way out here, way aspirational. And like, if we could get there, that would be beautiful. But let's make space for the journey. Let's make space for it being perfectly okay to just find partnership with your body, where you're able to just like be here and take care of what needs to be taken care of and listen and live as fully as you can. And if we never get past that, that's also perfectly fine.
And
Yeah.
it still feels better than that alternative of being at constant war with your
Yeah.
body, which
Absolutely.
I think so many of us can relate to. But I think the piece that you mentioned about how impossible, or I mean, I think it's impossible to ever say, I am fully liberated and I have, because we swim in the waters. And I just checked when you were saying that. And in the time we've been talking, I've received 3 emails about GLP-1s. And believe me, I unsubscribe constantly from these things. They still show up, right? So like, it doesn't matter. I can sit here and be like, okay, today I'm really, and like, and I get in that good headspace. Still, without my permission, lacking consent, I'm being inundated with this message that my weight is my problem and it's not okay, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we exist in that kind of world. And, obviously beyond that, we have social media and we have, celebrity culture and all of the things that are and often moms and other people who are constantly reinforcing those messages. So yeah, I think the idea of like, that's why I think for me, I sit sometimes in this place of disbelief with the body positivity kind of movement. And I think it's beautiful. I think that I want to believe and hold that there are people who truly
Absolutely.
just love their fat bodies and like
Yes.
constantly that is it. They are in love with them and they do love the jiggles and the folds and all that. Like I want to believe that's a possibility, but I do sometimes sit in that doubt of like, but how, when you are also existing in this world I'm existing in, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then I think something we need to talk about is that added layer when we're talking about intersectionality. And speaking of GLP-1s, because I know a big story and narrative in the zeitgeist at the moment is around Serena Williams using GLP-1s and white women in the body positivity space piping in and having their opinion on that without any kind of contextualization of the fact that my experience as a white woman and with my body issues is very different than you as Black women dealing with those same issues. And what helped me get there more than anything was Fearing the Black Body by Sabrina
Ooh.
Strain. Definitely recommend people read that because I'd always heard about like, oh, well, there was a time when people loved the Zaftig woman and all of this. And I always just kind of heard like what people desire changes, aesthetics change, but I never really got the contextualization about why the desires change. And Fearing the Black Body does a really great job of helping you understand, oh yeah, it changed because of racism, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
because it allowed for slavery, like it gave more permission for these hierarchies. So I don't know if I have a question inside there other than to say,
Yeah.
like, I just got to make sure that we're talking about that. And I'm, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
bring it up.
I think it's an incredibly intersectional conversation when we're talking about bodies. And I think the thing that I think people miss so much when they're talking about bodies is that it's it's not like a, for lack of a better term, one size fits all,
Mm,
right? Like there's so much individual context. Like obviously the systems that we're operating in are the main problem, right?
mhm.
Like GLP-1s inherently are not bad. It's how they're marketed, it's how they're talked about, it's how they've been assigned some kind of moral judgment, right? And so there's so much individual context that has to come into play when we're talking about body liberation, when we're talking about how people can experience, right? Maybe not full body liberation because of the systems that we operate in, but like the whispers of body
Absolutely.
liberation, right? Like
Absolutely.
on a day-to-day basis. Um, it's I think we miss that. We miss so much of that nuance, right? Because we want the easy thing to do. We want to be like, okay, well, what's the step? What's the multi-step process? Like, what's the formula for us to get
That's right.
there? And the truth is, like, there isn't one because the message changes every fucking day. Like, every
Yes.
fucking day, the world is throwing something new at us or rewriting the message in a different way. And we
Yeah.
have to adapt and we have to adjust. And I think, for me, like one of the things that I had to realize is that like loving my body does not equal loving myself.
Mm,
You know, surely it's a part of how I love myself, but it's not the entirety of how I can love myself. And living in a body that has suffered trauma, that is fat, that is darker skinned, like, and in a world that equates loving your body and wanting your body to look a certain way as loving yourself, it's hard to undo that. It's hard to unravel all of that. So, like, where do you start? Like, I know you
mm,
said like education is like the beginning of the framework, but like, what where does the education begin? Like, I know Becky mentioned Fearing the Black Body, which I was
yeah.
going to bring up at some point because that book is, kind of like foundational for a lot of like body liberation type work. But other than that, like, how do you help people start to unravel the
Mm.
complexity of all of that?
Well, this is a great question and a very deep question. And I mean, to be honest, like it's one of the reasons why, even though I have a framework, my framework is vague as hell. Like I've given you 4 umbrellas. I haven't given you 4 checklists because essentially we have to start where you are, right?
Mm,
Fearing the Black Body, when it came out, I bought it and I was very excited about it. I was like, I cannot wait because you're telling me that fat phobia and racism are hand in hand. Tell me more. I got to chapter 3 and I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it. Um, so in actuality, I created an entire system that I call the Fat Freedom Group Read. It's basically a book club, but I have it created a specific way where it's got several different layers that help us digest a text and like get through a really difficult piece of literature. Or okay, maybe not literature, but like, like a book, like, a text that we're trying to get to because Fearing the Black Body is not the kind of book that you're just gonna like cozy up with and have a nice cup of tea and like be in your book nook and read before bed. No, it is not
No,
that
it
book.
feels a bit textbooky. I mean, it's great, but it's
Right.
yeah.
Well, because basically it's her thesis. This is
it
her
is, yeah, it's
thesis
an
work.
academic
Yeah,
work,
and so
yeah.
it's very academic, number 1. Number 2, it's also so graphic and real. Like, it's not pulling the punches, it's not sugarcoating anything. It's telling you how it is. Like, it's calling racism racism, it's calling fat phobia fat phobia. Like, there's no cotton wool wrapping anything around there. So you have to be resourced in order to read this, especially if you're a person with that lived experience, with that kind of body. If you're a Black fat person, um I will go out on the limb and say, babe, it's not for you, actually. That book wasn't written for us. It wasn't written for Black people in fat bodies. It was written for people, it was written for people who don't have that lived experience.
Yeah.
To help you understand why the system's in place in the first place. Like, that's what it's about, right? And I read the entire book and didn't realize that until the end, because of course I was reading it analytically, and I was reading it within the container of the Fat Freedom Group Read. So I had community. I was facilitating these very detailed, nuanced discussions about the text. We were also reading the text very slowly. So, like, we were really able to like get in and like dig in, and it was so good. And that's the only way I was able to finish the book, because it was hard. It was so hard. Oh God, it was so hard. But basically, at the end of the book is the first time that she's really talking about Black people's experience. Like, with the Black people as like not the object, but like the subject.
Hmm.
And that's when I realized, I was like, oh yeah, this book actually isn't for me. It's not for us. It's not for this kind of lived experience. But that's not saying don't read it. I'm just saying that not everybody's ready for it, because you have to have the resources to read the book. You have to have support around it, because it's not an easy text to digest. So I think, yes, absolutely, put that on your list. Put that on your fat freedom list. Put it on your body liberation list. Absolutely. Get to it when you're ready for it. But ultimately, start where you are. Right? Because there are more accessible texts out in the world. One text that I really enjoy is Fat Girls and Black Bodies, written by Dr. Joy Cox. And that book is partially a memoir of her as a dark-skinned, fat Black woman from the South. And so that one is a little bit more narrative, so it's a little easier to read. Because I think that's the thing that's like part of the education, is to find the stories that can help you have some more context about someone else's experience, right?
Mhm.
Because you only know what you've lived, you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So, like, if you can find somebody telling you with their words, with their pictures, with just whatever way that they're communicating, if you can hear their story, that's one of the best ways to like start educating yourself about how these things work. Because if you can go through it through then you're going into it with a human lens. And also you can relate. You'll be able to
Yeah.
find places where it's like, oh yeah, I've had an experience like that. And that makes it personal. That makes it more possible for us to be in solidarity with somebody who's like completely different from us, because
Mhm.
we can then see our similarities. And so I think that's one of the best ways to do that, is like look for people who are out here in the body that you don't have, that you're trying to learn how to make space for, and like listen to them,
Yeah.
like watch their shows, watch their reels, watch their TikToks, like read their books and things like that. Because it's about learning about the systems, it's about learning about the politics, it's about learning about the details, absolutely. But we're all people too.
Yeah.
And we can't
Yeah.
forget that part.
I was just gonna say, like, I think even though in another book I really loved is Body's Not an Apology, Sonia Renee Taylor,
Yeah, so
another sort of softer, but not soft, but,
yeah.
maybe not as academic. But I have also found that for a long time, I was just like reading and reading and reading. And I think that's a wonderful and important part of a liberation journey, is like, because that education piece. I love that you mentioned that, because honestly, I think some of the stuff that's helped me the most around any identity kind of issue has been just exposing myself to more of that identity that I don't share, right? Like the more I fill my social media feeds with trans experiences, following trans folks who are sharing their experiences, their reality, the more I understand, have empathy, care, want to protect, want to fight, want to, all of the things, right? And the same for even identities I hold, like following other women who are living in larger bodies and talking about it. Part of it is, and or even just existing
Yeah.
Just existing, even if that's not what they talk about, or aging faces as I'm going
Mhm.
through the aging process. That's been a big one. Is like, it's like this exposure therapy, this normalization.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I just need to see more of that, because to fight off this narrative where I'm constantly seeing these people who are, size zeros with their Botox, and more power to them. But that's not my reality. And I need more of like, oh, that's right. There are lots of people who are existing in bodies like my body. They are letting their faces age naturally. They have gray hair, and like, they're okay and I'm okay. So like,
Yeah.
it's both like exposure to things I don't know to get some of that, like you mentioned, like who somebody said something, you can't hate somebody that you're eye to eye with, like
Mhm.
that, like piece of the empathy and the care. And then also just the like, let me see other people like me, because that, I think we have to fight that off with the constant bombardment we're getting of body images that are, whether they're realistic or not, they're just not our shared experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think storytelling, yeah, I remember watching a TED talk about why, like, using storytelling when trying to communicate ideas, like trying to communicate data, right? And using storytelling as an entry point for that. I forgot the woman's name, but we can link it in the show notes. But like, something happens in your, like, neurologically in your brain when you watch or hear a story, right? It's why movies and books like impact us the way that they do, is because the neurons in our brain start firing in this way where we're actually experiencing what the other
That's right.
person is experiencing without having lived it, which creates
Mirror
that
neuron.
empathy. Right, right. And so I love that you brought up storytelling, because like, there was a book that I read like years ago that I still, I pick up every so often, and it's Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown. I don't know if you've
Adrian.
if you've read it, but
Adrian.
like,
I can't get through it.
it's so good. It's so good because it talks about, I think one of the things that society has taught us to do to ourselves is when we don't fit a certain type of body, we punish ourselves, right? Because we haven't met this moral standard. And pleasure activism is all about, you don't have to wait to experience pleasure, regardless of the body that you're in, regardless of the color of your skin, your size, your gender, your identity, the trauma that your body has suffered.
That's
And I
right.
think for so many of us, we deny ourselves the ability to partake in various kinds of pleasure because we don't feel like we deserve it, because we haven't, quote unquote, put our bodies in place, right? And when I say pleasure, I mean sexual pleasure. I mean pleasure in food. I mean just pleasure in general, right? Just like the sun on your skin, right? Like being comfortable at the beach is
I
a
mean,
form of
gosh, as you say
pleasure.
that, I think, yeah, like, just think of all the ways because of body we deny ourselves pleasure. Because, like you said,
Absolutely.
food, we're punishing ourselves. Sex, we don't want to be seen. The not wanting to be seen, it goes into everything. We're not partaking in activities. We're
Yeah.
not, yeah, like, it's
Not
wild.
telling a lover what feels good to you
That's right.
Mm.
because you're uncomfortable in your
That's
body.
right.
Or you're
Not
afraid that they won't like you if
exactly.
you,
Yeah.
Exactly.
leaving, like, oh, yeah.
See, that's a big one, right? Like, I cannot tell you how many times I personally have experienced this and how many times I have heard this from people that I've worked with and been in community with, that they have allowed things to happen that are outside of their physical boundaries that they feel harmed by because they are afraid to say no, because they are afraid that that person won't like them anymore, that they are afraid that this is their only chance at love, that they are afraid at this is their only chance to have, this experience. And I mean, this is actually something that it's one of the opening anecdotes inside of Sonia Renee Taylor's The Body Is
Body's
Not an
not an apology.
Apology, because and that's where it comes from. You like, we do not have to give our bodies as an apology because our bodies do not fit into the standard, quote unquote, the ideal. And I think that that's so powerful as like a place to start, because it's really, that's also part of the work of body liberation, is a reclamation of like, my body might not be what the world tells me it should be, but it is mine, and I am allowed to experience pleasure. I am allowed to have nice things. I am allowed to be sensual and have my
A
needs
fucking
met.
orgasm.
Oh God, have a fucking orgasm. Have like food in my mouth that tastes good to me. be on a surface that is comforting and cushioning my body in a way that is both supportive and giving me comfort. Being like able and worthy of being touched in ways that make me feel loved and cared for and held. Just like being able to put clothing on my body that makes me feel expressed and just like to be here. Like just the pleasure of being alive. Just the pleasure of being alive.
And like being able to go get that clothing at a store, right? Not having to go through hoops to find something
Or
that will
any
fit.
store, just any store,
Exactly. Like,
as
'cause
opposed
that's
to the 3 stores
right.
that cater to my size.
There's the personal piece of that, the interpersonal piece of that, and then the systemic piece of
Absolutely.
that. Everything you just said feels so right on. And especially that piece about like what I hear inside that is this is my body. It's not for you, right? And I think that's what we often forget. And it makes me feel like so much of this is by design, right? It gets into the
Absolutely.
like these systems were created so that because we don't hear men generally, right, wrestling with these same issues around their bodies. There's some men, not all men, all that. But, on the whole, this is not an
Hashtag.
issue that men are wrestling with, right? And it's by design. The people who live inside of marginalized bodies are made to be apologetic about their bodies for that very reason, because it allows people to control their bodies. It allows people to extract from their bodies. So like none of this is accidental, right? I just think it's so important too when we think about liberation. That's why, because it's not just about feeling good in your body. It like, yes, but it's a critical piece of like liberation, right? I just
Absolutely.
think
Yeah.
that's so important too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So to wrap up, what is bringing you pleasure these days? What are
God,
the things that are bringing you joy?
look, I bought myself an ice cube machine.
Okay. I see
Is
those
it
on
one of those
TikTok
that makes
all
the
the
cute
time.
the little round,
The
delicious, like
nuggets?
rabbit
No,
turd?
there's nothing special about the shape, which is kind of like it's sort of a bummer. I live in Europe, and in Europe we have these tiny refrigerators, and I live in an apartment, and so we have this tiny built-in refrigerator. It's literally got 2 freezer drawers, and so it's such a pain. I complain about it so much because it puts a real like monkey wrench in my meal prepping and everything. Because like you keep it in the freezer, everything is easier when you can freeze stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to like be like really conscious about what goes in my freezer. And I love an ice cube. Like I love an ice cube. Like I will be satisfied after dinner. Like I don't need a dessert. Just give me a cup of ice cubes. I'm good to go. And like I just find it really satisfying to have like just the cold in my mouth. Like I love the sensory experience of it. The fact that it's also hydrating. Like, I adore it. But like I was struggling because I had to make choices. It's like, okay, I can go buy ice and put it in my freezer and not be able to have broccoli and ice cream. So it's like, which one?
That's a hard pass.
It was hard. It was so hard. So, I mean, sometimes the ice cubes win. It's like, look, we're just gonna have to order that. But basically, like, I bought a machine. Like, a friend of mine was like, Taina, there are machines you can get to put on the counter. They make ice cubes. And I was like, what are you even? I went to the internet. The internet delivered me. It was like, it's not terribly expensive, actually. I think I spent 60 euros, which feels really expensive for what it is. Kind of it is. But, like, for my pleasure, I can afford to give 60 euros, which is like 3 months worth of ice buying and
Yeah.
schlepping to bring it home. Now I can have broccoli and ice cubes. Hello.
Yeah. That's
Can you
amazing.
just say your name? Because I swear you just said your name, and I swear you said Taina.
No, I'm Tiana.
Tiana.
Okay.
Tiana.
I swear when I heard you say it, though, I was like, I think she just said Taina. I'm so confused.
I think it's because we have it in our heads right now. Like I realized like I was gonna get off of this call and I would have to like question myself what my name is.
my name. Am I
Speaking of your
sure?
name, where can somebody find you if they want to learn more about you and your work?
Mm.
Like, where are you most present?
Oh gosh, where am I most present? Sitting here in this chair on this internet, but usually only in like small closed containers. But if you can't meet me in a small closed container, then you can find me on Instagram. I am not active there, but wow, is there lots of content that you can like take your time scrolling through to really get a feel of who I am and what I'm about. So I'm on Instagram at I am Tiana Dodson. You can also check out my website, which is not necessarily the most up-to-date place, but you can check it out. I do update it sometimes to
Occasionally.
let you
Yeah,
know what
this
I've got going on.
entrepreneurship life.
Absolutely, because I'm the only person doing all of this and I only have so much time. Thank you. But that's TianaDodson.com. And actually, if you want to actually see me like having real fun, I was on TikTok for a short time and I didn't disable it or take it down. So it still exists. And I am Tiana Dodson on TikTok and you'll see me there acting a fool.
Okay.
It'll
Awesome.
all be in the show notes for people who want to find.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
This was
thank you.
such a good conversation.
It was. Thank you for being here.
You're
And
welcome.
all day, I'm just going to try to be able to remember whose name. Taina.
We'll get there.
We'll
Yeah.
get there. I mean, it's
I feel like
so
you guys
fun.
need to do some sort of something together just because, I mean, if for
I
no
know,
other
right?
reason, just
Just
because
to
your name.
confuse people.
Yeah, it's meant to be.
It'll be like the world's biggest prank.
Like the Tie and Tie show or something, but it'll be great. I love it. All right.
That'll
Thank
be
you both.
awesome.
Thank
This
you.
has been
Thank all of you.
great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Messy Liberation.
Will you please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen?
I know people say that all the time. And if you're like me, often you just go on to the next podcast. But truly, taking that moment to do that will really help us reach a wider audience.
Thank you so much for your support and for listening today.
Until next time.